I've been on the phone with somebody's parent to assure them that this is only women playing together, because that is a big objection for some households, more conservative ones, obviously, where uh, the girl is very keen. This young girl is very keen to go out and play. She's good at playing this particular sport, but her parents are not very supportive because in their mind, sport is for boys, and if you're going out and playing, there are probably boys involved.
Yeah. You guys, when we were chatting, you guys conjured up this really beautiful image for me, and that stuck in my mind, which was that now kids, whether it's boys or girls, usually they are driven to their sports field by the mom, right? And now they see their mom lacing up her boots and getting ready to play instead.
And we've learned more about the impact that this is creating over time.
You guys have built Sisters in Sweat around this idea of a community for women by women, right? It's clear that that community or sisterhood really means a lot to you guys.
Right.
So tell me about that.
So, when we started our first session, it was with a bunch of friends. It was our friends. So that community piece became very much part of the DNA of how we grew, because friends then invited friends. And what's really, curious to see is that bond, that initial group of people who are already friends, continues to stay as this community grows larger and larger. The personality of that initial group of friends is what has permeated the larger community. So I think community is very, very central to Sisters in Sweat. It's not just a bunch of, well, in the first instance, it might be a bunch of strangers coming together to play, but very soon after one session, those strangers become more than strangers. They become acquaintances and then go on to become pretty close friends as well. So
Yeah. I think when we started with, like Shweta said, one football session. And I think especially given that we're catering to women, there's already that initial fear of sport, right? And I think that's where the community angle plays such an important role in bringing the ladies back. Because, they're not just doing it alone, they're doing it with a bunch of other women who, like she said, eventually become friends.
Right.
And I think when we started off, it was just something we did, and the women enjoyed it, and they requested for us to do it every weekend, and that's how we grew. It snowballed then into something much larger. And I think very soon, Shweta and I recognized that what we were offering was not just the sport. We were offering the women to connect with each other. Yes, football or sport just happened to be the tool, but it was always community actually, so yeah, very much a part of what we then tried to focus on going forward.
So, what was that seed idea that started it off? Was it completely by accident? You said that you started it
Yeah.
for friends.
Yeah.
But was there something deliberate about this? And then did you guys start to think that this is the kind of community we want to build, or was it completely organic?
So, I'll just take the first part of this because it was completely by accident in the first instance. But I think there was definitely a pivot point, which was perhaps a year and a half into doing these weekly sessions and watching more and more people join in, which is when we kind of stopped and said, okay, there is something here that we need to build on. And then from that moment, it became deliberate to some extent. But over the course of these years, we have changed and we have sort of tweaked things to fit what was being asked of the community. So yeah, to some extent deliberate, to some extent let it grow organically, and we'll follow that lead.
What I will say to that is when this idea came about, which was a friend's idea really, we obviously had nothing. It didn't come from us. It wasn't a piece of paper that we sat down and wrote that this is the plan.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. It was a friend. We had a conversation. She wanted to do a session for her and her girlfriends. And so that very first session was very mindfully done by us because we knew that these were slightly older women. We're talking about 35, around the average age of 35. which meant that they either had never played football before or played many years ago some kind of sport. So keeping that in mind, we designed this 90-minute session, thinking at that time that it's going to be a one-time experience, that's it. But it was mindfully done even at that stage.
Yeah.
We had music playing on in the background. We wanted them to just have a good time and also just teach them the sport a little bit. And it becomes like this community activity in the morning. So because it was so consciously curated back then itself, we've stuck to that format till today because it was so mindful back then. And I think just by default, it became very community driven. Because we kept in mind the fact that, we want them to have a good time. She handled the first half hour of the session, making sure that their bodies warmed up, accurately for sport. Then I took over, made them do some basic football drills. Again, keep in mind music was playing, so it was just for them to have a good time. Take it easy, take it lightly, do it with a bunch of friends, and we finish off with a little game, a football game at the end. And that's the format that we do till today.
Oh, wow.
It's still always a 90-minute session in all of our sports, and this is the format that we follow. The women have actually taken it up a little bit more seriously, and now they're playing division football. And why not?
And I'm going to come to that, and because I want to know so much more about how you take people who might have this sense of fear or apprehension is the word, yes, and then kind of really get them out of that and into professional stuff. But I know that when it comes to sport, and especially with women and girls, and I'm one of those people, so I know. There is this sense of, oh my God, can I start? Will I be good enough? Where do I begin? How do you guys deal with that? Because I would imagine in what you do, that's a large part of what you're dealing with.
Yeah. So a couple of ways. I think one thing that we really don't have to do is, if your friend were to attend a Sisters in Sweat session, I'm sure she will find it to be encouraging, non-intimidating, and she'll go back and tell you, hey, you should join in as well. So we don't do too much of the work of having to go out there and convince girls to come, because usually it's a friend that's attended. And then we do some work as far as our social media is concerned to put out videos and content that is really non-intimidating. We put out blooper reels to show.
Thank you.
No, just to show people or whoever's watching that, hey, this is just about having a good time, and you might get fit in the bargain and have all these other benefits. I think that's the way we tackle the intimidation piece of it. And I think Tanvi and I as well try, whenever we get to speak about it, try and demystify sport as much as possible.
Correct. And I think women, obviously this is coming from a girl, but I truly think that women have a lot of courage. They do.
Yeah.
And we just have to mobilize it. That's it. And I think it all comes down to how, like I said, from the very first session till today, it's so mindfully done. Safety is looked after. We make sure that the women drop us a message afterwards once they've reached home, if it's an evening session. We check the hygiene of washrooms, the little things like that we know is important in the overall experience for the woman, so that she feels encouraged to turn up that first time, and then she'll just see that it's a bunch of amazing women. Honestly, we attract, they say your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Something like that. So I think we just got a good bunch of women, and if you turn up for one session, you'll get hooked, because the ladies are super encouraging. If you mess up, it's taken so well. You're supposed to learn. It's a platform where you're learning, you're growing.
Absolutely, you could do, but I mean, it's all
we're in good spirit.
I'm a blooper all the time, by the way.
Why do I find that hard to believe?
It's true.
No, but she does it. She does it intentionally. She likes to become the blooper. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Not always, but sometimes.
So you guys have studied at some really prominent schools and colleges. I know that you did economics, and then you worked at Ernst & Young, and I know that you did international management. So you've come from fairly varied fields.
Yeah.
But in these institutions, do you feel that sports got the kind of importance that it should when it comes to women and girls?
Yeah, I'll start with that, because the truth is, today I can say that I'm a footballer because of the school I went to.
Which was?
So I'm a Delhi girl. I've done my schooling and undergrad in Delhi. Went to Vasant Valley School all the way from nursery till 12th grade.
Yeah.
And I think I was just fortunate because it was one of those schools that gave equal importance to extracurricular activity as they did to, like, being book smart. So I think my strength was always in sports. The teachers noticed that from like day one, and they always encouraged it. So it was in school where football was introduced to me amongst the various other sports as well, and I fell in love with the sport, and I actually started playing with the boys in school. And then eventually our school recognized that there's enough girls picking it up. They formed a girls football team, which became the first team in Delhi, first football team for girls in Delhi. And so we ended up representing the Delhi state team in the under 14 age category, and that's kind of how my journey started.
Wow.
So it was because I was at the right school, So I would definitely say the educational institution has so much to do with the pathway, especially for girls in sport. And thereafter, having fallen in love with the sport, everything I chose to do thereafter, football was very central to my decisions. I went to Jesus and Mary, college again because they had the best football girls team. And then went for my master's to England, where I did international management. Again, the university I did it at, Exeter University, was chosen because they had a very strong football team and a football system over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was then football just became very central to my decision.
My experience slightly different. The school that I went to in Bangalore up until the 10th grade was an all-girls school. And because I was so keen about playing and I was decent at it, it was encouraged.
And which school was
I
that?
went to
Shilpa?
Sacred Hearts. It was a convent in till the 10th grade, and then so while I was there, I was very actively playing hockey. I played for the state of Karnataka as well, and they were encouraging enough, but it was very clear that academics was always more important.
Yeah.
So I did slip up a little bit academically, I would say, till the 10th grade. And then in my 11th and 12th, I went to an international school in Bangalore, where it wasn't as important. So if you wanted to play, you really had to push yourself to go out there and play. And by that time, I was pretty convinced there was no future for me in sport because, I mean, even to this day, as a woman in sport in India, it's hard to sort of figure out, where you're going to go. And for me, it was very clear that, okay, playing a sport like hockey is not going to get me very far in life. So I picked the academic route when I went to, pursue an undergraduate degree in economics. So I didn't focus on sport too much. Was it around me in the university to some extent, but it certainly wasn't, in the forefront from what I remember. So, yeah, my experiences were no, there wasn't too much of a push as far as sport was concerned, especially for women.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
hockey was sort of like an accidental thing that happened to you when you were younger?
I would say accidental, but I'm also from Coorg, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like you have to play hockey if you're from Coorg. It's like-
Really?
yeah, I mean, the community is big on that
Wow.
particular sport. In fact, the Limca, we hold the Limca Book of World Records for the most number of teams that participate in a tournament. It's quite mad. We have a hockey festival every year, and it's quite an event.
How did your parents respond when you said, I'm quitting ENY and I'm starting this thing on my own?
2 thumbs up. My parents are very supportive.
That's
I'm
so
very, very lucky, which is,
Yeah.
again, like when we talk about barriers that women face in this country, if they want to participate in sport or be involved in sport, the household is a big barrier. It's
Yeah.
very hard to convince parents that this is the job or career path you want to take. Luckily for me, that was not a barrier that I faced. And I think through our journey in Sisters in Sweat, we realize how privileged Tanvi and I are to have the support in many forms that most women in this country don't have, which then we are now able to identify and try and overcome those barriers for these women. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So, so true. I when I went to Exeter University and I played for the university team there, that was my first exposure to English women's football, and I loved it. Obviously, the coaching, the infrastructure, everything is far superior. And I came back then to India after my studies, and I sat down with my dad and my coach, and I told them that. An important fact is that I actually hold a foreign citizenship. So even though in 2009 I was called for the under 19 India camp,
Yeah.
I was successfully doing well
But
at
then
the
how do you
camp
play
as
for
well.
the India team, right? If you're not a
Yes,
citizen.
exactly. So I was at the camp and I was doing like successfully, but unfortunately towards the end they told me that sorry, we can't select you because of your citizenship.
Yeah.
So at that time, anyways, I was going for my masters next year. Loved the English level of the game. Came back and then I figured that okay, I can't go on to play for India. I may as well try my hand at English like club level football.
Yeah.
So then I sat down with I did my research, found out when the trials were happening. There are some clubs that do open trials. And I think my dad didn't bat an eyelid when I said I want to go give trials 6
Amazing.
months from now.
Yeah.
He said, no, just do it because he saw the hard work that I was doing.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a social life for like the next 6-7 months. And I just landed up in London, gave trials to 3 clubs, of which 2 of them liked me. One of them was Tottenham. Then I played with Tottenham for 2 seasons. 1 season I changed to Fulham Ladies. And yeah, in 2016, I came back to India. But I got to say that throughout, since the time that I was like a kid to, till date, the support of my parents has been important.
Crucial,
Yeah, it has been, I would say, the central pillar
Yeah.
in many ways. And I can imagine, because I actually get a lot of confidence from the way that they support me. That if that wasn't the case, and I can imagine how crippling that could be,
100%,
especially for someone who's as passionate as I am about playing.
Yeah.
my mom actually played basketball for the state of Karnataka.
Wow.
So for her, like my earliest memory is sitting by court side and watching my mom play badminton. I mean, she plays, if she play anything, but at that point she was actively playing badminton. I'd watch her and I'd watch her play with boys half her age and literally cream them. And I was like, this is what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep playing. And for my mom as well, like I think both me and my brother, she would make sure that we were always involved in sport. For me, it came very naturally. For my brother, it wasn't like his, but my mom always pushed us a little bit. So yeah, I think that support from the household was definitely crucial for the both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you guys both kind of come from these different areas of sport, and then you've sort of brought all of this together.
Yeah.
And I am going to come back to talk about some of the stories, like for instance, the stories of your childhoods and your families were, like you say, privileged and supportive. And I'm sure that when you look at your community and the community that you're building, that's not the case with a lot of women who come in
Absolutely.
and who have committed and want to be a part of this sisterhood.
Right.
So what are some of these things that you hear, and what are some of these conversations that you've been part of while building this community?
So many stories. I mean, I've been on the phone with somebody's parent to assure them that this is only women playing together, because that is a big objection for some households, more conservative ones, obviously, where the girl is very keen. This young girl is very keen to go out and play. She's good at playing this particular sport, but her parents are not very supportive, because in their mind, sport is for boys, and if you're going out and playing, there are probably boys involved. While Sisters in Misters, I mean, Sisters in Sweat now has a Sisters in Misters category of sport to play as well.
Oh, okay.
So we do involve boys in some of our sessions.
Once a week.
Yeah, once a week,
Okay.
or might be more in the future, who knows. But our sessions are, for girls.
Yeah.
And so I've been on the phone with a parent to convince
Yeah.
him that,
And that's a recurring thing, I'm sure.
I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. The other thing that I know a lot of women have to navigate is that once she's married, she has a set of responsibilities. She's also expected to work and contribute to the household. So playing sport is right at the bottom of the priority list. So how do we sort of bump that up over time? How do we convince her that this is equally important? I mean, there's less to be convinced. Once she participates, she sees how it enriches her, and she wants to come back. But there's a lot a woman has to navigate in order to participate.
Yeah. You guys, when we were chatting, you guys conjured up this really beautiful image for me, and that stuck in my mind, which was that now kids, whether it's boys or girls, usually they are driven to their sports field by the mom, right? and now they see their mom lacing up her boots and getting ready to play instead. Right. What are some of these impacts that you guys have had on people? And did you ever dream that you would have this impact? Did you ever dream that you'd be doing what you're doing today?
There's a really cute anecdotal story which we often tell, is of the woman who actually, she's a very close friend. She was the one who said, will you teach me hockey first, to be quite honest?
Yeah.
And I said no, because it involves a stick and I don't think I'll be safe. But finally, when I introduced her to Tanvi, she said, hey, will you teach me football? And that's how we kind of got started on Sisters in Sweat. But her story is an interesting one, where she would obviously very regular, would lace up every Sunday morning. She had a young child. He was all of 3 or 4. And he'd watch his mum lace up every morning to come, or every Sunday, sorry, to come play football with Sisters in Sweat. And then shortly, few months into that, or a year into that, Tanvi was playing the state league. So Shonali brought her son Dante to watch the game. I was there as well, I believe. And her son Dante turns to his mother and says, "Mom, do boys also play football?" So it's what we're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
to imagine that this is even a question, it does mean that we're creating a little bit of a paradigm shift in
Yeah.
the
Beautiful.
next generation,
Yeah.
possibly.
I mean, the reality he's growing up in is so different than the
It's
one
so
like we
different.
grew up in, right?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, like I said earlier, Shweta and I never sat down and wrote down a piece of paper. This is what we want to do. This is what we envision. None of that.
Yeah.
That has evolved over time, and we've learned more about the impact that this is creating over time. And I will say that when I decided to go to England to play, to be very honest, it was obviously to test my own ability in the sport and really sort of grow as much as I could as a player. But I always wanted to come back to India and make a difference here, because I knew that I came through the Indian system and had that very rare opportunity to go and experience what there is abroad. And I wanted to always bring that back in some form or the other, and create any sort of impact. The unit level impact per woman is
Yeah.
different. So every member of ours has joined the community for a different reason.
Yes.
And so it's fulfilling something for them, different from the next person. And that's not something that you can ever truly grasp. But it feels, I think we're privileged to be in this position.
Absolutely. Because there's a tangible impact of people getting fitter, getting better at the sport.
course, yeah.
Even the kids kind of growing up seeing their moms play. And then there's the intangible
Tangible.
one, which
Correct.
which like you guys say, you can only guess at sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But Tanvi, when you come back and you're setting up training for football here for women, what are some of the things that that were your takeaways, which you feel that you've been able to execute here?
I think number one, I definitely fall more on the elite category, right? The kind of training I've done is intense. You have to be fully dedicated to it. But then the audience that we're catering to at Sisters in Sweat is recreational. We want them to have a good time. So there are differences just in
Yeah.
my, let's say, my professional career and the one that, and the audience that we're catering to. But what I will say is that every detail is looked into, which unfortunately, even at the elite level, sometimes is missed.
So starting out from just a handful of friends
Yeah.
to now today you are what, like 8,000
Closer
women
to
in your-
10, yeah.
Closer to 10.
Yes.
So we just spoke like what, a couple of weeks ago, and it was 8,000 and it's 10,000 now. So how do you keep up with this community that's really fast growing, both in terms of your administration, also in terms of, team culture and things like that? So how do you manage to keep everything cohesive and intact and yet deal with this really fast growing community?
So I'll be very honest. As far as the team is concerned, we're stretched very thin. It's a very small team, and it's hard to expand the team as quickly as we'd like to. Also, because this is a very new space, so people aren't convinced that there's a long-term career here. So and we hire younger individuals who are keen to experiment with a bunch of things. So right now, it's say we definitely need to expand the team. We have a small team and catering to a
And
large
how
group.
small when you say small?
We were about 9 core employees.
And all women?
No,
There's,
okay.
there's one boy
There's one boy, but
How did
in
he
Mumbai.
come in?
by accident. He slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
No, so the intent actually was to keep this all women, have our coaches be women as well. But what we realized, as far as coaches are concerned, again, very very new for a woman to get into this space as a coach. So there was a dearth of coaches, and the only reason then we turned to our male counterparts to do the coaching is because we were like, okay, listen, we want the best person for the job, and it's not like we're against boys at all. We just feel like we'd like to give women the opportunity. And the truth is, if we were dabbling between two coaches who were pretty much the same in every other way, we would go with the female coach to give her, because we feel like we need to create those opportunities.
At the interview stage itself, when we look for new recruits in our team, there are a couple of things that we have to sort of ask and understand about the person. They need to be truly invested in our vision, the impact that we're looking to create. The fact that, yes, it is in the sports industry, it is in the fitness industry, it caters to women, and it's community driven, right? So they need to truly be passionate about what we do, because I know it's easier then to be sure of the fact that they will go the extra mile, right, for the experience of the member, right? And I think when we sit at the table, when we have our weekly meetings with all the verticals and things like that, we always try and put ourselves in the shoes of the member and try and make sure that at the end of the day, they are who we are catering to. So we need to understand them truly, which is why whether you're in the communications vertical, or whether you're in the operations vertical, or the events vertical, or the brands vertical, everyone engages with the community. So you're not just sitting behind a laptop, sitting in the office, disconnected from the community and trying to deliver to them. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So you need to be involved at ground level, go for sessions, go for those weekly sessions, connect with the women, go for breakfast afterwards, have those connections with them, because they will tell you, it's such an open environment in that sort of at our sessions and afterwards. And there's such a beautiful bond between the women that they open up, and they'll tell you, okay, this is working for me, next session work on shooting. Okay, coach. Or like, why don't we also try pickleball, coach, or something like that, right?
And
So
you have, right? You started pickleball
Yes,
as well.
exactly.
Yes.
And a lot of the times, every next move that we make comes from the members' request, right? So we have to have our ear close to the ground.
And I'm sure there's an added complication, because you guys had said very beautifully that you also want to keep it very economical, very
Yeah,
affordable, because you
right.
don't want to filter out people
Based
purely on the
yeah,
basis of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's another thing that you guys need to now
Yes,
work into
yes.
the larger plan.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, of the many barriers that one faces to participate in sport, we did not want the cost of the session to be one of them.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm sure we still exclude a segment of the population because of the cost, although we've tried to keep it as minimal as possible so we can just continue to run the sessions. However, from a business model perspective, we have our brands and events vertical. So what we're trying to do quite consciously is monetize the business through the brands and the events that we do, so we can continue to run these sessions and be as inclusive as possible from an economics perspective as well.
According to you guys, what can be done at the level of schools, at the level of policy at schools, to prevent girls from dropping out of sports after a certain age or a certain level?
Now, from my experience, academics has always been king, followed by everything but sport. Sport is right at the bottom. Can we give sport more weightage? I think it'll be a long time before we can ever give it equal weightage. That would be the dream, because it is important from a long-term perspective. But can we give it more importance? Can there be also a grading system? Not to say that you are going to be the best at a sport, but you're an active individual. How can schools make it more important? Even for when you come into a parent-teacher meeting, never was the activity ever discussed. It was like, Shweta failed in Kannada, she didn't do this, she didn't do that. But nobody ever said Shweta is doing pretty well on the hockey field, right? That
Yeah.
wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
So can we talk about, this child is really active, and we're seeing progress there. That's a good thing. One of the things.
Yeah, I mean, see, I spoke about my experience. I wouldn't be sitting here saying that I'm a footballer if it wasn't for my school.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, back then itself, they gave equal importance to extracurricular activity as they did to, doing well at studies. And I think that is the way forward. And the truth is that the amount that you learn life skills through sport, you cannot learn in a textbook. So as long as the schooling system overall sees sport as an education as well, it is a tool to growing as a person.
Yeah.
If they gave it that equal weightage, I think that it will really lead to a holistic development of the student.
That's a great thought.
Right. So, and that needs to be embedded into policy. And if all schools adopt that, whether it's a government school or private school or whatever, I think that, I don't know, I feel like the future would definitely look better. The other thing is, one of the barriers at least at the kids level, where most children do play sport or they are more active, is infrastructure. And a lot of schools do have, infrastructure, and they do have fields and basketball courts and things like that. So what I've noticed now, and I'm happy to see it with this last visit of mine to Delhi, I noticed the schools have started in off schooling hours, giving it out so that public can use it as well, which is great, because I think one of the things that especially metropolitan cities face is the lack of space and infrastructure. So not only are you catering within schooling hours to your own students, but then open it up to public to use it as well.
As two women with similar expertise but different kind of personalities, backgrounds, histories, all of that, you've come together to found something, and then you've actually made it happen, and then kind of really made it rock over the years. But what has that taken in terms of making it work together, given that you're different, such different people?
Okay.
Is it working? I don't know.
I think the good thing is that we are different in very complementary ways. Sometimes, however, we have gone, we have butted heads as well.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we have. So I would say
Normal.
this November we actually celebrate 7 years of Sisters in Sweat, and you can imagine
congrats.
7 years of doing this is a long time of being, in each other's, I would say, faces almost like every day.
Yeah.
So of course there have been differences. There have been, she has a different working style than I do. Definitely more corporate than me. I'm a little bit more open, and I like working through the night. That's so we're just very different in some of the most fundamental ways.
Yeah.
But what really has worked is, yes, we do have similarities in that we're both passionate about sport. We're passionate about fitness. So we have that in common. But her skill set and my skill set are different. I like creative stuff. That's why I've, very naturally gravitated towards handling the communications and marketing vertical. And then, since I play sport and I'm a footballer, even the sessions and operations vertical, I mostly look over that as well. She looks over the more, the finance. She looks over the events, the brands. I would say more of the macro stuff is her.
Yeah.
And I feel like more of the detail-oriented micro stuff is me.
Yeah.
And that happened very naturally. Yeah. Any comments?
Yeah, no, many comments. No, she's absolutely right. Our skill sets are very different. Our personalities are very different.
Yeah.
But I think where we come together is our vision for what we want to do. Also, the fact that before any of this started, we were very good friends. We say we were. We still are, I think.
Past tense.
We were. Now we're business acquaintances. No, but we have a friendship that I think sees us through a lot of the ups and downs of the business as well, right? Because that's an important piece, I think, that we have also sort of dedicated time to keeping, because that can easily get lost, I think.
I think I know a lot of people say that maybe friends shouldn't work together,
Always.
or siblings shouldn't work together, whatever it may
Probably
be.
true to some extent.
Yeah, maybe for some.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's true for some.
You guys were friends before you started
That's
Sisters in
right.
Sweat.
Yeah. But I think the one way in which it has helped to have had that before is that we obviously understand each other. So let's say she's having a rough day or whatever at work. I understand her intent, right? It may appear a certain way, but I've completely understood where it's coming
What is
from.
that certain way that it appears?
Whatever, I can see that. I can see that something, that she might be sort of occupied mentally by something. I
Yeah.
can see it, right?
Yeah.
And I understand it, rather than sort of taking it to heart and taking it personally or making it drag longer than it needs to.
Sure.
And then, of course, then the professional angle is that, yes, her experience, professional, she's worked for Ernst and Young and things like that. So she has more of a corporate. I rely on her a lot for the macro vision and for some of the, I would say, maybe the drier stuff. So that I can take on.
I sound like a real party, don't I?
So that I can take on the more creative, I'm on ground in terms of making sure the sessions are running well. The coaches have a thorough hold on everything.
Yeah.
Making sure that marketing wise, what Sisters in Sweat looks like on social media, those sort of things I look over. So yeah, I think it works.
But at the end of the day, I understand you guys were friends, are friends, but there's the brass tacks of running a business and a fast growing business, right? Do they ever come into conflict with each other?
Yeah, they often do. I mean, that's the truth. They often do. But I think over the course of 7 years, we've learned how to recover quickly from those moments, right? Quicker, and it gets better. And I think at this point, at 7 years later, we're, perfectly secure in our friendship as well, where we know, okay, we're going to take the gloves off and beat each other one day, but we'll also, bring balm to the wound easily, So I think it's taken us time, and there have been moments of this is it, I can't do it anymore, but we're well past that now, and now we're just like moving forward with both the friendship and the business.
So the thing is that there isn't anything like Sisters in Sweat out there. So it's not like a blueprint has been provided to us and we're going step by step, right? It's literally the structure, the model of the business has evolved over time. What I'm taking on, what she's taking on, has evolved over time. Besides the fact that we come with, of course, our own interests and our skill sets, there are things we've had to learn on the job as well, right? Which has been happening parallelly. And I think the fact that we have a friendship allows us a lot of space to constantly converse with each other.
Yeah.
Right. And
very transparently as well, you
yeah.
know. There's no I think when you meet someone in a work context, there is that, okay, this is
Yeah.
my colleague,
Yeah.
and you interact a certain way, you share your thoughts and ideas a certain way, which is a good thing as well. Maybe it sometimes does a disservice to us that we were such good keep saying were, sorry. That we are such good friends that sometimes it's just too transparent and too raw. But that's become our working style. It's unique to us.
Yeah.
We own it. And we're fine with it. Might not work for the next business.
So, on the one hand, there are the subscriptions, right? That's how you run a part of your business. And then you also mentioned the events and the branding and that sort of thing. So, how do these different pieces come together? And as you go forward and as you grow, how do you have a vision for how you want to
Right.
kind of grow this?
So coming back to the genesis of Sisters in Sweat, right? It's very much community driven. And we use sport as our main tool. But we also realized as we've gone along that one place to bond is the sport field, but you bond differently when you're doing something that is not sport, when you're maybe out having a drink together, you're singing together at karaoke night. So we very consciously created these events that may or may not be movement based at all.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is just to foster that sense of community. Where we've managed to monetize this business is through the brand collaborations, which might happen for, the sport, some sessions or for some tournaments, or they might happen for events. For example, we might tie up with a wine company to do a wine tasting. And that's perfectly fine, because as a business and as a community, our philosophy is not to be militant about anything, especially about being super fit, and we don't prescribe to that at all. What we try to propagate is a holistic lifestyle where you can do a little bit of everything that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And if that means having a drink once or twice a week with your girlfriends or your friends, that's what you should be doing. And we want to sort of be able to bring you as many options to have like a well-rounded life. So yeah, the brands piece is an important piece for us in being able to monetize this. Otherwise, if we were just to run sessions, it is a tough business, because whether one girl shows up to the session or we have a house full of 20 women, we will still show up
Yeah.
with us, with our coach. And if it's just you that shows up that morning, we will be there for you. So on those mornings, obviously not making any money off of it at
Yeah.
all. We're losing
Yeah.
money. We're paying you to be there.
Yeah.
But it's important.
And I know that you bootstrapped the business, right?
Right.
You kind of started literally from scratch, and then you built it up to what it is today. How has that looked? Have you ever been approached, and I'm sure you have, by people for funding,
Yes.
equity, that kind of thing? And is that a journey that you've chosen to take?
Right. So yes, the business is very much bootstrapped. Tanvi and me put in pennies to set up a website when we realized, okay, we can't do the registrations on WhatsApp anymore. We have to have a little bit more structure to it. And since then, the business has funded itself, and we've managed to grow from that perspective. Yes, we have been approached over the years from investors. Up until this point, we have said no. Also, because we know that with investors comes a whole bunch of things that might change the nature of our business. Also, I don't think at that up until this point we actually found the right fit.
Yeah.
In terms of vision. But definitely going into the new year, we will be looking or will be open to it for sure. Uh, we want to do some big things that will require the investment. We'll look more for strategic partners than just people who are willing to put money into the business, because
Sure.
that's I guess an easier proposition. But if you find somebody who can bring in some expertise, some value, that's what we would like.
And for
to
the
see.
visions to align.
100%.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah,
important.
it's very it is a community. It's very quality driven. It's all about like I said, like per member unit level experience, so yeah, I think we just need to have the right people on
The
board,
right fit,
because
yeah.
we've been doing this for 7 years.
Yes.
Gotta trust us entirely. Yeah.
Yeah, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about you as a footballer and the fact that you've played in British teams and things like that. But Shweta, I know that you have been a personal trainer, like a certified personal
Yes.
trainer. Is that what
Yes,
you call
that's
it?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. For several years before starting up, and I think you still hold on to that, right? That's you still somehow find the time to continue to do that. What makes you do that?
I mean, it's a very, very long day, let me tell you, because
Yeah.
if you want to continue to do that, so I start my day with a session of personal training. I mean, that's something that I'm very, very passionate about. It's uh, it's funny because with Sisters in Sweat, you see the impact of what you're doing with now 10,000 women. And with personal training, you're working with one person at a time and you see the impact. So it's two different things, but
Yeah.
I really enjoy the personal training piece as well. I've tried to hold on to it. Obviously, time is becoming an issue for me. I'm able to do one session a day. And maybe there'll come a time in the next few months even where that's not going to be possible, because I don't have enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that when things stabilize a little bit more, I can continue to dabble with the personal training piece, because I really do it.
And it's just that it's always been close to your heart. You've been great at it, and therefore you want to continue and hold on to some part of.
Yeah, it's just something that I enjoy. It's like my meditation, if you will.
Okay.
Getting someone to lift weights. Yes, feels good.
From a personal life perspective and point of view, what have been those sacrifices you guys have made? Because I know you very graciously said that you've been really privileged, you've come from really supportive families, but I'm sure there's something you've given up. Like you hinted that you didn't have a social life for some time. I know that you left a corporate career where a lot of people would have felt like we've already landed. What are the things that you guys feel you've given up?
I mean, I feel the word given up feels a little bit loaded.
Sure.
So it feels like, okay, you have 24 hours in the day, and we're building this, and we have this vision, and every day is fulfilling in its own way. And should we come anywhere close to the vision that we have, none of it looks like a sacrifice in my mind. Even today, like I like going out. I'll enjoy a drink 3, 4 times a week if I could, but if I can't because I have to wake up. I want to do the personal training. I want to be there for Sisters in Sweat. I haven't had the chance to put my phone down in 7 years, uh, and that's caused my power to go up and up and up. But it's okay. I need to show up for the community. That's what I need to do right now, and I'll do it. And I'll do it. I'll complain from time to time for sure. I just need to vent, but I come back and do it because obviously the satisfaction or the rewards that I get from just seeing one girl smile after a session or come up to me and say thank you so much for starting this community. It's changed my life. Very recently in a session, somebody came to me and she's like, I moved from I think Delhi, it was, to Bangalore, and she said it was the first time I left my home. I was terribly homesick. I just wanted to go back. And something told me just go try this session. And now Bangalore feels like home. All my best friends are I met through Sisters in Sweat. I mean, there's nothing that I've given up because this is far too large a reward to have felt like anything was a sacrifice.
So Sisters in Sweat is essentially a startup, right? And what we're living is an entrepreneur's life, and it's basically it's full on. It's also very operationally heavy, as you can imagine, because we have sessions every week in multiple sports and now in 3 cities, and it's only going to grow. So the amount of time that we have to constantly be tuned in, making sure, because something as small as, let's say, one of our members lands up at the wrong venue for a session, something as small as that, it's a big deal. Though we want to make sure that she reaches the right place at the right time. We need to be available, right? So just being constantly accessible to the team, to the entire community, like 7 days a week. It is full on. And a lot of the times my family complains because I'd be sitting at like the dinner table and my phone has to be with me because I have to be accessible. I have to. That's just the nature. They know that this is also a phase where we work hard right now, build this to a certain stage, after which we can hopefully put in a good team together to do all these things. But because we've been doing this with the best people to continue to do it for as long as possible, until we're able to sort of hire the right hands and things like that. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about sacrifice, it honestly, I love, even though I'm up at night, there are some nights that I don't get a lot of sleep because there's so much work to do. It never feels like a burden ever. It never feels like it's not worth it. Because like the next morning I'll wake up for something, and then at the end of the session, one of the members will come up and tell me that it's changed her life, and it's like it's so worth it. That staying up that night was so worth it. So it never feels like a burden, it never feels like a sacrifice. But it's just because it's non-stop, it can get maybe sometimes a little bit exhausting. But then again, it just those moments happen again and again when the ladies come up to you and and then it's just a refresher, and then you go.
Working with women every day from all walks of life, right? What would you say, and this is a generic question, feel free to break it up the way you want. What would you say are the most challenging things, the greatest rewards, the most interesting things, the greatest learnings? What would you say are really kind of like the learnings that you have from this?
I mean, working with women, I think more than anything, like beyond the workspace, I think I've really understood, because I started off by saying we come from a very privileged position in terms of we had our family support, economically, we had the support as well. I have realized through this journey with Sisters in Sweat the number of challenges that women face. Is that your?
I'm so sorry, my phone is just buzzing and
That's
buzzing.
okay.
Okay, can you just retake that? I'm so sorry. Let me just. How do you put this? How do you put it on silent? Airplane. Just put on airplane. Airplane, no.
Yeah. I think it's really opened my mind to the number of barriers women face, the number of challenges they face in order to just look after themselves and do something for themselves, especially when they are past that school stage. Once you get out of school or maybe college at best, then your life is very, very scripted as a woman in this country. You have to get married, you have to have your children, you have to look after the household. And in all of that, where is the time for you as an individual? It's altogether lost. Your identity as well. You lose your last name and you take on your husband's name. Uh, you know, until very recently, I feel like I filled out a form when I was traveling to say that there was no objection from my parent to travel. Like, I mean, like I'm a grown, person, and I still need this. So I feel like your identity also starts to shrink more and more in some ways. Uh, so I feel like what Sisters in Sweat has done by bringing sport to these women is given her identity back, given her a sense of agency back. I say identity because when you're playing a sport and you want to pass the ball to somebody, I'll say, "Hey, Tanvi." So I call her by her name, right? And that's for the first time, and you'll hear many women say this. It's given me my identity back.
Really?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this was exactly how I
Tell me
reacted.
more about that. Why?
So you lose your identity, right? I mean, first of all, as a woman in this country, you're in the fringes, and once your role becomes so much more defined in that you have to be you provide for the household in that you make sure that there's food on the table, and the kids are you take care of their routine and all of that. So, and even this loss of your last name, like to this day, I'm Shweta Subaya. And imagine one day as Shweta something else. Like, I just can't. It is a loss of identity, which is not just an India thing, but I think in many ways our identity starts to fade and fade and fade. And while you play sport, I think because you're called out by your name, that gives you a sense of, okay, I'm Tanvi, I'm Shweta. Uh, Agency, when you are playing sport, you decide where you're going to pass the ball. Whereas in the larger context, women are very much told what they need to do. They don't necessarily have to take that sort of ownership. I pass the ball. If the ball goes, away from the person, I mean, that's on me, right? That sense of agency also comes through in these sessions. It gives it back to her in some ways.
No, I think sport, just the nature of sport, is by itself very empowering, right? And then give that opportunity to women, and
Yeah.
it has even more of an
Multiplier
impact, right?
effect, yeah.
In the empowerment that they feel. But I will say one of the big learnings that I've had about women through this entire, community building 7 years that we've been at it, is how I would say how powerful a change a woman can make in her household and in her society. If there's a brand, I don't know if it was Nike, but basically that said that if a change is to happen, it has to happen through women. Because I feel, and it's so true, because the more repressed gender is women, right? So if change is to occur, it'll happen through women, and I get that, and we're seeing that firsthand, because the moment you give the woman in the house a little bit of that freedom, the power
Empower
to
her
go
a
play
little bit,
sport
yeah.
and stuff, there's so much that changes in the
Within the
everyday life
household,
of the
yeah.
whole house. Like, for example, let's say one of the a lady picks up football. Now she comes, let's say, even 2 times a week or whatever. Now she's an active footballer, technically, right?
Yeah.
She's playing actively. She's going to want to make sure the nutrition is good. So what she buys for the household will be very specific. Will be like, okay, fine, it needs to be high protein. It needs to, so it has a ripple effect on the people around her, which is the beautiful part of it. So being able to do this for the woman is not just only being able to do it for her, it's for the people around her as well, right? So that's what I'm recognizing now. The influence of an empowered woman
Yeah.
is superb.
Speaking of Nike, you guys met at the Nike Dara Ding campaign. Is that right?
That's right,
yeah.
yes.
And that was so super iconic.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's kind of etched in the minds of so many of us over so many years. How did that happen?
Okay, so I was in England playing for 3 seasons, and then I came back in 2016. And like I said, I always wanted to come back and make a difference here. I had no idea how. But I came back in 2016, and there was a friend of mine, again from Vasant Valley, a batchmate of mine, who got in touch, and she said that, listen, I can't reveal anything to you, but just send in a video of yours saying, that this has been my football career or whatever. So I did that, and she said, it's for like it's for like a advertisement or something. I didn't have much details at all. I was like, okay, fine, I'll just do it. I'll send it. And I did it. And next thing you know, I was, getting a call with detailed information about my career and everything. And then basically Nike then, was doing this campaign where they featured multiple athletes, all females,
Yeah.
from various sports. And they picked me and I think one other friend, Jyoti, up as the footballers represented in this campaign. And the truth is, I don't think any of us were aware of the scale of this campaign until after it was done and after it was out there. Yeah. Because we didn't meet the other athletes. We only had individual shots on a particular day, and that's it. And it was in the interview process once this campaign went viral, because it was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
They picked up female athletes of all things, and
Right.
the music was fantastic. It was just a fantastic campaign through and through. And then there were multiple interviews that all of us did. And it was at one such interview where she actually tuned in virtually. And that's how we actually kind of saw each other, met each other for the first time. And she was based in Bangalore at the time. I was based in Delhi. And I actually moved to Bangalore the following year. I think around March of 2017, I moved to Bangalore. She then became like my main friend in Bangalore. And then, that's a few
Gave
months
her a
later.
social life. It's all right.
So it started there.
That's exactly.
And then how many years later did you start Sisters in Sweat?
In
2017
November of
November.
that, yeah. I mean, we say we started Sisters in Sweat in November of 2017. It means that was when we did our first session with our friends. And for all of 2018, we were just doing this with our friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So officially, Sisters in Sweat as a company, as a partnership, was born more in 2019. And then we changed it to a corporate earlier this year.
Yeah.
The company.
So who are the women who've inspired you? Because I know you inspire a lot of women.
Yeah.
Where did this inspiration come from for the both of you?
So honestly, when we were asked this question initially, we were racking our heads. Not to say that we were not inspired by anybody, but the truth is, I don't recall sitting and being like, I want to be like this woman. But when the question was asked, I actually thought about it for myself. Obviously, I was like, besides sport, my one big love is music, and she'll attest to it because I keep singing to her and she'll ask me to shut up. But there's always music playing.
She
in our
has
session.
like those
I
the
collect
she
vinyl
collects-
records.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So I'm
Yeah.
obsessive about music. I love sound and things like that. So growing up, I listened to a lot of music, and there was one particular musician that made a huge impact. And I was like, I want to be as cool as her. And that was Madonna for me.
Wow.
I mean, you have to hear Madonna's story, which I only more recently, obviously, not as a child, did I go into the story. I just thought she was very cool. I knew she was definitely atypical in that way. She was doing everything that a woman was not supposed to do, the way she dressed. And over the years, of course, in the 80s and 90s, she was like, oh my God, she's so cool. But also to see her journey and how she evolved with the time and stayed relevant.
And it just redefined herself.
100%.
Yeah. My turn? Okay. So for me, in fact, I'll be very honest, during the course of this interview, I thought of a different answer, but not so different also. But in just that, I think in general, I have a lot of respect and admiration for women in general. The amount that like a woman takes on through her life, the responsibilities of taking care of the people around her, essentially, and then some of them manage to actually take our time for themselves over and above that. I think that's fantastic. That is beautiful. So I think for women in general, especially given how much we're restricted from things, and despite that, going out there day in, day out, finding motivation, finding a way to take care of this person, look after this one, and then also hopefully finding time for yourself. So yeah, women in general. But I did mention this earlier in this conversation, but I was called for the under 19 India camp in 2009, and I couldn't go on to play for the country. And so that has always been a dream, that, to wear that Indian jersey to represent the country. Because I am completely Indian in every sense, grew up here, my education, my footballing started here, all of that. So yeah, that's a dream. And I think if I would love to sort of, you know, be wearing the
You want to
Tanvi
see
Hansen.
yourself like
Yes,
that.
I want to see
Yeah.
myself in an
Let's
Indian.
do that. And
in an
you
Indian
Madonna
kit.
of the 80s or
Yeah, 80s,
Yeah, that
early
was the
90s.
best.
Oh my God, those
Yeah.
are her years.
Yeah, the early 90s.
Yes.
Yes.
Although
Exactly.
I went to a Madonna concert last year.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
How
I
was
did.
that?
Epic. Because she sang all her old hits. It was the
Okay, maybe
greatest
that's
hits.
why.
It was the greatest hits concert. And she was, for what it's worth, she's in her 60s.
Yes.
She danced for the whole 2 hours, like
Mm.
straight.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming
Thank
and for being
you.
a part of this podcast. It's been super, super amazing having such active, sporty, entrepreneuring women here. And I'm going to do my best to dress you guys up as the Indian woman football team player and as Madonna from like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Done.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.